Welcome to the Songbirds podcast. I'm your host, Brian Shannon, and this is episode 10. In this episode, we sit down with a great one, Anna Popovic. Anna is an incredible blues guitarist. Man, she's got a great story too. If you ask yourself, how in the world could someone from Europe play great blues? Well, I tell you, try growing up under the regime of Slobodan Milosevic, a convicted war criminal. She talks about that and a lot more. She has traveled all over the world, studied jazz guitar in the Netherlands. She moved to Memphis, Tennessee. I just love listening to her talk because you hear someone with an Eastern European accent with a slight Southern twang. Listen for that carefully. But she goes through and talks about her influences, her gear. We get down in the weeds a little bit on some nerdy guitar stuff, which is never a bad thing. And this is just before she played a show here. When she comes back again next time, my friends, you do not want to miss this incredible talent. Because she is definitely a guitar player for the ages. We're very lucky to have her here. You'll notice hosting this conversation for this episode is our producer, Brian Knispel, S before the P. Brian filled in for us. I was away on traveling and was unable to conduct this interview, but Brian obviously does an incredible job for us producing this and sitting down and holding the fort down for us having this conversation, so I know you will enjoy it.
So welcome to Songbirds Podcast. We are here with Anna Popovic. She's about to play a show here at Songbirds North. Unfortunately, Brian Shannon, who is typically the interviewer, he had to be out of town, so I'm going to take over. I'm the podcast producer, Brian Knispel, and also I will be doing sound for Anna tonight.
Awesome.
So, and the sound check sounded amazing.
Thank you.
So I want to delve into a little bit where you grew up. Mm-hmm. Interesting in Yugoslavia at the time.
Yeah.
Slobodan Milosevic. Mm-hmm. That must have been pretty interesting.
It was, rough times, good times for the blues. That is for sure.
Yeah, so how did you get into the blues?
I got into blues at a very early age. You know, my father has a large collection of LPs and records, and at that time, later on, VHS tapes and, music magazines and books about guitars. And he had nightly jam sessions at our home. And ever since I remember music, 3-4 years old, I was listening to Delta stuff and Chicago blues and Texas blues and jazzy blues, all kinds of different shades of blues. So it was just a regular thing for me and a very natural environment back home, sort of an oasis from all the stuff that was going on later on, of course, in the years. But I mean, at a very early age, probably sooner than a lot of other American blues artists got into blues, thanks to my dad. Mm-hmm. So when I landed in Memphis, which was 20 years ago, to do my first record, that was like coming home. That was the sound that I grew up on, and my dad encouraged us to sing, and we were singing Howlin' Wolf and Elmore James and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Albert King and Albert Collins and Freddie King. That was just a natural music for us, way before we could understand English.
And I understand that he actually learned to speak English from listening to some blues. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he.
So how good is his English?
It's pretty good. Yeah. He learned it from the records. He was so much into that. So, I had luck to hear all these great artists at such early age, because nowadays it's easy. You got the internet, right? You can go wherever. You can have lessons. You can have guitar lessons. You can slow things down. You can you can read about. If you're a blues fan, you could be born anywhere. Back then, it was difficult to get records in Serbia, and to keep up with what was going on. But that's how I got into it. And this year we're celebrating 20 years since I formed my band. That's the only thing I've ever done as far as a job. So that's when I really said, okay, I'm going to go full-time, be a musician, and going to give it a try. I was a graphic designer at that time. I graduated graphic design and come from an art family. But that was the moment when I kind of really decided, okay, I'm going to give it a shot, which was, if somebody told me back then that I'm going to be doing more than 100 shows each year for 20 years long, I would think that he was crazy. I mean, just it was very consistent, different territories, different countries, but as far as we never had a bad year.
I thought it was pretty interesting that you named your first album Hush.
Yes.
as the Anna Popovic band.
Yeah,
After,
we had
now, was that
I
an
had a
homage?
band called Hush before
Yeah.
I moved to Holland, which and before I formed my own band, Anna Popovic Band, and that first record was sort of a little dedication to them.
That's very cool. Also, classical music. You started playing classical guitar, correct?
Yeah.
And then went to jazz.
Well, I started classical, Spanish guitar. That was when I was about 10 or 11. That was my dad thought maybe that's the way to do it. As far as I was a kid back then, so he thought maybe Spanish guitar is easier for me. I really did not like that, and I just couldn't wait to finally get my hands on an electric guitar. That was a short period of time, and then I started playing. Indeed, I had some guitar lessons, and then way later I got into I studied jazz for a year at the conservatory in Holland, and world music and pop, two different schools, and then finally I just went and worked on my career because we already had concerts and those were all over the place. The record was out in the States. It was the first nominated continental European artist ever nominated for the American Blues Award, what used to be called
You've got
WC.
a lot of firsts.
Had the award.
First of everything.
Yeah, right. Well, it's
Very
true.
cool.
If the continental European, that was me. So then I just stopped the studying as well and just went on full-time musician.
Cool. And so, but the jazz music, you can hear it in your playing. You're not your typical blues player, which I love. I really appreciate that. But so when you moved over here to Memphis, how long did you live in Memphis?
And I moved full-time to Memphis only 8 years ago. And spent 3 years over there. But the first time I started recording in the States, and I recorded ever since, was back in 2000, So Memphis was my first stop. I recorded many records, as you know, and I picked different cities for those records. I kind of like to inhale a city and enjoy the music, so I would just kind of spend some time in a certain city recording. Memphis was, for that matter, 8 years ago I was recording, although I recorded in Memphis before that, but and I just stayed, and I stayed for 3 years. It wasn't planned, but actually we just moved and with the family, and we loved it. We loved Memphis. We loved the people. We loved the energy. And then 3 years later, we were ready for California. That's my dream destination, always been, and not necessarily for music, because in the meantime, I spent time in New Orleans, in Nashville. Obviously, you're so close to these cities if you live in Memphis. So I really was enjoying recording, in all these cities. If I needed a rhythm section, I can go New Orleans style. I can go Memphis soul pocket. I can go a little bit more profound Nashville sound. I used to do a lot of horns in New Orleans. I would do background vocals and production in Nashville. So I could just pick and choose. LA was more like a destination that I always loved, the nature and the weather. You can't beat the weather.
You cannot beat the weather, that's for sure. Do you surf yet?
I don't, but my family does. They're all surfers. Yeah.
Nice. So you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
And a husband.
Yes.
So how do you balance that out?
Yeah, I couldn't do it without the help of my husband. Obviously, it would be impossible to do what I do. So when girls,
do you mind if I ask what he does?
No, I don't mind. He actually books a lot of shows for me in Europe. So if you see the agenda, lots of those are booked by him directly, like
Gotcha.
Benelux and Germany, and many territories. We also have agencies all over, so he corresponds everything. He's managing, he's corresponding the work with the agents, so I don't have to do none of that. I only do music.
Perfect.
So I only do music with the band. That's my job. The rest, he coordinates when we are on the road, how long we're on the road, and stuff like that. And so he works from home, and then we got 2 kids, 7 and 11, a girl and a boy. And it's they don't know anything else but that mom goes out on the road and dad stays at home. And it became much easier, with age. But it was tough, and we toured with both of them as babies. It was tough. It was probably the toughest years of my life. life when I had to play and tour with 2 kids. Oh wow, I don't look back, and I don't wish for that again. But
Are they starting to pick up instruments?
They do, yeah, they do. Luke, my son, plays, and he is very talented. He plays piano and he writes songs and stuff, and I think he's the a big talent. My girl is like, I think she might get it sooner than him because she just wants it so bad. she like nothing can stop her. So I think that would be a good combination if they do something together.
Nice. Well, so we have Irv over here. He joined us. He wanted to be in on the conversation. Irv Brunner is our assistant curator, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about a little bit about gear, like what you play through, and also I know Irv is interested in some of your influences as well.
I got a quick question. You grew up in Yugoslavia. Your dad had this great collection of American blues records. Were they readily available in Yugoslavia, or how did he acquire them?
Oh, he would just, have, if anybody was going abroad, he had a list of records he wanted.
Gotcha.
So the moment Stevie Ray Vaughan would come out with a record, we had it. That was back that I remember, like, okay, that record, we need to have that. And obviously, he could get all the, all the blues artists at that time. Europe was full of that, all kinds of reissues, records. It was very in, at that time.
Right.
70s and 80s. So you can just purchase them, just not in Yugoslavia. You would have to go abroad.
What's really cool is noticing how your music has evolved, because now I'm starting to hear more funk in your music. Who are some of your funk influences?
It's just really when you say funk, it's like I like the old school funk. I like. War. I discovered mandrill.
I actually got on stage with War at one point.
Oh, yeah. Those kind of, I just need a certain groove, and I don't necessarily like to call it funk because it's really not in, James Brown. It's not any of that. But I really like that old school, sort of a greasy sound, to it. So I discovered mandrill, and I did the Fence Walk, which was their little hit song from back in the day, and I just fell in love with that sound. War, I was always a big fan. But our music is just really broad, and it's based on blues, but it got here and there funk influences. I had records that were sounding pop. I had records that were sounding jazzy. I had blues songs on all of my records. A poppy sound, European sound. All of it. New Orleans sound. So I like to. I have fans that's been with me ever since my first tour here, and seriously, they're on every show. Like they come and say, I've seen you back with Michael Hill, and I've seen you, when you start the first tour. They can name the places, they can name the clubs they saw me, and they are my motor, really. When I think about next record, it's easy to gain new audience, right? You play, you got this great band, but how are you going to have those people come back 20 years later, buy the tickets and come see me? So I think I need to bring a new sound on every record. Latest record with Kev Mo, it was more of a Nashville sound and a little more funky, but also a little clean production, sort of a Nashville production. So every record is something else, different subjects, different thematics for writing, to keep them inspired. They haven't seen everything from Anna Popovic yet, after so many records, and I write most of those songs. So trust me, it's not easy to find a subject I haven't covered yet. Everything from environmental issues, political records, records about love, about most important things in life, about, time, about friendship, everything, So when I find a subject that I haven't, I grab that and I write around it. And then if it's going to be funky, if it's going to be roots, if it's going to be that depends on many things,
Very cool. I thought it was interesting. I was reading about your album covers, and there's the one very provocative one where you're holding the Stratocaster, and there was, a lot of people were naysaying you about, basically saying that you were just using sex to sell your music. Which your comeback was, well, no, I'm one with my instrument.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly
less
right.
is more.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it was unconditional, and I'm in love with that cover. I think it was the right time to do it, and I think it's just really what I feel, which is being one with your instrument, and that's how I feel every night on a good night. on a good night, when the band plays, when we are, just in a zone, and even sometimes it don't even matter what kind of a audience response you get. It's really a wonderful, moment in time. That particular 2 hours that you have, those are sacred for me, in a way.
Yeah.
Really, I can let all the troubles or everything, it's all about me. That one moment with this, 5 people, and we create magic, and every night is different. But you really need to surround yourself with a band that can pull that off.
And have you been playing with these guys for quite
Yeah, for some time. I mean, Jerry's new the horn section as well. So, sometimes that first energy is just as important as if you play with somebody a long time. I have a rhythm section that travels with me on both sides of the ocean. I have a Hammond player in Europe that's been with me for 14 years, and Brooks is here with us in the States, and the same goes for the horn section that's been with me longer in Europe for about I think 8 years, and here we added horns later too.
Which
we used to
great.
play, we used to play all the shows in Europe with horns for a long time, and it was a 4-piece here. So, we change up things, and even now, lots of people would come and they want to hear horns. People come, they want to hear just guitars, but I've tried it all. I played a trio for many years, and I learned a lot from that. I played a 4-piece and horns. I even had a 9-piece band with background vocals and a rhythm guitar player for a year, which was fun. You just have to change it up.
Change is good.
Change is good.
I noticed that you
Change is
changed.
good.
I was looking at your pedal board. You changed out your wah to the custom audio because you used to use Vox.
I
Right?
do, and I still do use Vox and different. I have different pedal boards. One is waiting for me in Europe. One is then there is a simpler version for flying in Europe. There is a simple version here for flying, and this is one of my pedal boards. But yeah, this is Dunlop. But I do like that Vox as well. The British flag. They don't make that anymore.
And do you still play through a Mark IV every now and again?
Yes, I do. I have a Mark IV in Europe. As a matter of fact, our DVD and the live CD that we just recorded in France was played through a Mark IV. I got a California tweet from them that they just shipped over together with a Mark V for me to try out, and that's a wonderful amp as well. Wonderful amp. So, and I did go back to Supers as well. This is a Blackface 66 Blackface.
And Irv and I were discussing earlier. That thing sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's a wonderful amp. And I got a tweed basement at home. So I switch actually amps more than I switch guitars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, the tone's there as far as
Yeah,
guitar. It's
yeah.
all about, trying to encapsulate that tone and emitting it out to what it needs to
They're
sound.
quite different. I mean, and then again, not really different, because I think that Mark IV is really like a big modern Fender. If you ask me, that's from all the Mesas amp. I think it's closest to a Fender, to a blues tone.
Yeah.
So if you go through a orange distortion, that's pretty much a Fender sound. If you go to red, then it becomes heavier. But I actually enjoy switching, playing different.
And you use 2 tube screamers.
Yes.
Is it the 808 or TS9?
They are the original. The
808s.
They are the original ones, yeah.
And so 2, 1 for...
No, they're just really different. I mean, and they add, the reissue that they make, I don't think that's close, to the original one. So I think it's almost like not even the same pedal, if you ask me. It's
Right.
like, how can you call it a tube screamer? It doesn't have that depth, and the tone is just a copy, So I got one, but then when I play them together, which is an extra boost, I guess, it also changes the tone a little bit. It gets more depth, obviously, and it's just a different tone, two distortions that one, and some songs just require one and some songs require both. But yeah, I get a lot of pedals. A lot of people send me pedals. I really enjoy the tube screamers. That's I guess my combination.
Sounds amazing.
And it just with the 64 Strat, it just gives that real sound, that real old school sound. I can't hear too much distortion. I can't hear it too modern. I just have to hear it kind of big and old school. So it works great with both amps. And then I got a super badass distortion from Dunlop that I use on some more modern stuff. It's pretty simple. I mean, I changed up the pedal board as far as pedal board goes, but I got a delay pedal. I got a chorus, also Boss chorus, the very first. I guess it's the first one with 2 buttons. I love that sound.
Less is
I don't
more.
need 3. I don't need 4. I don't need whatever they made. Was just. I don't think they beat that first. So I try to find it, and a lot of fans know that I look for those pedals. So when they find it in a store, they buy it and send it to me. Which is wonderful. The same goes for that Vox wah-wah.
Well, to wrap things up real quickly, I just want to say, since we're in here in Songbirds and you've taken a look around, what is one of your favorite guitars that you've seen in this museum?
Well, my favorite is that desert sand there. Desert rose.
With the rosewood neck?
Eddie Cletros.
Oh, Eddie Cletros.
Yeah, with a gold pickguard.
Which, for those of you at home, is a 1957 Strat in desert sand with a solid rosewood neck.
Yeah.
Not a rosewood fingerboard. The whole neck is solid rosewood.
Yeah, it's a beautiful guitar.
Yes.
We'll get you to play it at some point.
I played it last time I was here.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much
Yeah,
for taking the
thank
time to do this interview, and I look forward to hearing you in about 2 minutes.
Excellent. I'm ready.
All right, let's do this.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, this is Brian Knispel. I'm the producer of the Songbirds podcast. We're sitting here with Irv Berner, and we're going to discuss the guitar that Anna Popovic happened to mention in the podcast that you just heard. And this guitar is a 57 Strat with an all rosewood neck. And that's about all I'm going to tell you, because Irv Berner, who is our assistant curator, he's going to discuss a little bit more about this guitar, who it was made for, and a little bit more about who that person was and what kind of music he was playing. So, Irv, take it away.
This guitar was originally built for a kind of a Western swing, country and Western artist named Eddie Cletro. That was his stage name, Eddie Cletro. I believe his real name was Edward O'Clethero. From Trenton, New Jersey. When he started off playing around the clubs in New Jersey many years back, he would do the pop hits of the day and some country and Western. He found that the country and Western songs got the best response, and he went off at some point and got a big cowboy hat, and they became a bit of a star back in the day. Did television and had a minor hit with the song "Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette." We love this guitar because it's a 57, and in that era, right around 57, they get into these V-necks. And if you never played a V-neck, the first time you played, it may feel awkward or seem weird at first. But if you kind of dig in, especially if you're playing blues and rock and whatever, I think they feel great. It's the Clapton model, Fender Strat, Eric Clapton model, has got a V-neck. That's what Clapton prefers.
Let's talk more about the rosewood neck. It's the one and only, correct?
It's the only one done at that point in time. That is certainly the one the only one we know of. I always try and say that because every now and then Dave Davidson will walk in here with something that he just discovered under a rock that nobody knew, existed before. It's solid rosewood, and what I mean by that, there's no fingerboard like the maple necks of the 50s, which was solid maple. This is designed the same way. And if you look at the back of the neck, you won't be able to see it on the camera, but there's actually a skunk stripe in the back here where the truss rod went in. But the walnut against the rosewood, it's hard to see. But there is a skunk stripe, solid rosewood. And the rosewood neck gives it a bit of a warmer sound than any other maple neck Strat of that era.
And it's got a gold anodized aluminum pickguard. Can we talk a little bit about that, like why Fender was putting anodized aluminum pickguards on guitars?
Everybody knows single coil pickups hum. They've got that 60 cycle hum. And if you think it's bad today, go back to 1957 when all electronic appliances and your amplifiers had two-pronged plugs. Nothing was grounded. The wiring in your house probably wasn't as good as it is today. Certainly nothing back then is what we refer to as code today. So the hum back then, I'm sure, was probably even way worse than it is today. That being said, they put these anodized aluminum guards on, thinking it would help prevent some of that hum and noise, which it really did not. My understanding, it'll help with hum from fluorescent lights, but anything else, it really didn't do anything for. So, yeah.
And then this is a desert sand finish, which technically was not either a DuPont or Ditzler paint. It was the primer paint? Is that right?
Well, I guess it was a color, but Fender used it as primer paint.
Okay.
They didn't use it as a color back then. Well, first of all, there really were no colors in the 50s. That was very, very rare. We've got a handful of them in our vault that were done special by Leo and his team for artists of the day or whoever wanted something special. And whenever they did like a pastel colored guitar, be it shell pink or I'm trying to think, shell pink or maybe even a black one or whatever, the desert sand would be the base paint, the primer.
Gotcha.
This would be the first coat. After that, they would put the color on, and the final coat would be the clear coat that sealed it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, so anyways, Anna Popovic played this guitar in a vault session that we had done with her a while back for the Songbirds Foundation, and you need to go check that out because it's pretty cool just to hear this guitar being played, and she does a great job of it. But anyways, hope you go check that out and keep listening to the Songbirds podcast.